I remember the night the pain began. I was 12 years old and sitting at a restaurant with my mom and 4 sisters. I began to feel sharp pains in my sides and felt the urge to urinate very suddenly. I ran to the restroom, and my 16-year-old sister followed. She assumed that I had started my period, but there was no blood. I recall crying and toppling over in pain, unable to hold my bladder. I didn't understand what was going on and what was wrong with me. When I finally mustered the strength to go back out, face my mother and sisters, I could only beg them to leave the restaurant. We finally left, but the pain didn't subside until days later. Over the next few weeks, I felt as if I were being interrogated by my parents and doctors. My mother felt that I was sick, but that I over-exaggerated my symptoms and how intense the pain really was for me. She would take me to the doctor, but one after another they would tell me that I was faking it for attention, or I was lying, and it wasn't possible for me to have this pain. The doctors would berate me for my answers and treat me as if I were ignorant about my own body. I was too embarrassed to tell any of my friends. I missed the whole 6th grade year, half of my 7th. I couldn't sit in class because the pain was so unbearable, and the frequent urination. It was a nightmare to live through. I had accidents at school and would call my dad crying and begging him to take me home. He would only bring me extra clothes to change into and leave immediately. I was struggling to deal with the pain and felt so alone. My family showed no kindness, and the new friends that I had were pulling away. I felt so alone, and slowly I just stopped complaining about the pain and closed that part of my life off. I'd pretend that things were okay so I didn't have to be the weird kid at school, and I'd stop being a burden at home. I finally started my period when I was 14, and the pain was 1,000 times worse. I struggled with heavy bleeding, intense cramping, lower back pain that would bring me to my knees. And I remember crying on my bedroom floor, praying it would just stop. My mother took me to an OBGYN at this time, and they prescribed birth control to test if this would help my pain. The doctor suspected endometriosis and recommended that I stay on birth control for 9 months with no breaks for a period. This was the first time in 2 years I felt normal. My parents only allowed me to take the birth control for 2 months because they were afraid I would start having sex, and partly due to the cost of the prescription. I couldn't understand why they would deny me this relief. There was no use in fighting it. They also refused to take me back to this particular doctor again. I quickly fell back into the old cycle of life and became depressed. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was suicidal and thought about death more than I would like to admit. The next few doctors that my mother took me to performed awful tests. They were invasive and caused me more pain than I believed necessary. I felt violated and embarrassed that they would perform these tests on me, but completely refused to do one laparoscopic procedure to either confirm or deny the endometriosis. No one would take my claims of endometriosis seriously, and when I brought up what the previous OBGYN said, my mother told the doctors that I was a liar. She wouldn't allow me to see the doctor alone, and during all of the tests and the procedures or exams, my mother was there. She would tell the doctors about my pain, and I felt that the doctors wouldn't give me the proper time and attention because I was a child in their eyes. After 3 years of being ignored by my parents and moving to a new school, I met a few great friends that I'm still very, very close with to this day. My romantic life took a turn for the better, or so I thought. I was only 15. I met a senior who was 17, and after being neglected at home, my pain, being ignored for so long, I latched onto him. I latched on to the only person that gave me any attention at all, and I fell for him too quickly. Before I met him, I couldn't imagine dating or going out with a guy. I was too embarrassed, and I never knew when the pain would start. I was 27 before I found a doctor to take me seriously. After years of struggling with the symptoms, the depression, and the anxiety that this caused, I felt so much relief. I cried in his office. Having a doctor believe me was incredibly difficult. Most thought that I was crazy and too young to have this disease, and no one would agree to the procedure until I went to the doctor for my post-op checkup after the birth of my third child. We found a lump directly on my left ovary. It was incredibly painful, and it hurt a lot when I touched it. He told me that we would be scheduling a surgery in 1 week to find out what this was, but suspected it was endo. And to hear a doctor tell me this, it was incredible. I figured out how to deal with it on a daily basis, and I always make sure to plan accordingly. My life revolves around this disease. From the trips I might take or special occasions I attend, I've learned to deal with it, though, always in silence. Since the pain began, I've just learned to deal with the intense cramping, the back pain, the frequent urination. It's almost on a daily basis, and the length or the time, it always varies from day to day. Looking back on my life and realizing that I've spent more than half of it in constant pain, I feel that this disease has robbed me of my childhood and young teen years. I couldn't attend sleepovers, birthday parties, school dances, or concerts in fear of what may happen if I did. I couldn't confide in anyone until I reached high school and would stay tucked away in my room just praying the pain would go away. Being alone all the time really caused me to feel like I didn't belong. I felt so misunderstood by my classmates and friends when I was younger. I missed so much school and heard so many terrible rumors about myself when I returned. I wished that I could tell them the truth, but in all honesty, I had no idea what was even wrong with me. Over the years, I've really struggled with my femininity due to this condition. I couldn't be intimate with men because of the intense pain, and felt that it was better to be alone rather than to open up and be rejected. I had learned the hard way that not everyone is your friend and not everyone cares about my well-being. Sex in the past has been difficult and very painful. I would have to ask to stop halfway through, and my previous boyfriend would begrudgingly do so. But when I was 21, I met my husband, and although it was difficult for me to open up and tell him everything about my condition, I felt that I could trust him with this. When I finally opened up and told him, he was surprisingly understanding and cared about what I was going through. At first, I wanted to hold back the pain and try to hide it from him when we had sex, but he immediately sensed that something was wrong and would stop without complaint or a second thought to himself. He made me feel valued and respected, and after all these years, I knew it was okay to open up and be myself. My husband and I have struggled with pregnancies over the years. After our first child was born, we experienced our first miscarriage, and again 2 years later, we would go through the same pain of losing another child. But over time, we have been fortunate enough to bring 3 beautiful children into the world, and I am thankful for them. I try not to dwell on the miscarriages too much, as I know I wouldn't have the children I have now if they had been full term, but it's hard to think about what may have been. My husband has been my rock through all of this. He has helped me more than anyone else and is always understanding about my condition. The pain can come on so quickly and without warning that it has ruined many occasions, but my husband has never made me feel as if this is my fault or that I'm faking it to get out of doing something. He knows this is out of my control. My children do not know about my condition yet. I don't want to burden them with my struggles, but when they get older, I know I will be able to sit down and discuss this part of my life with them openly. Unfortunately, I don't have any type of pain relief. I spent most of my years trying to find a viable solution, but my doctor has only recommended Lupron. The side effects scare me more than the endo itself, so I have refused to take it. Right now, the only thing I can do is sit with a heating pad if I can, but if I'm out and the pain comes on, I have to sit through it and try to move on about my day as if nothing is wrong. I have intense anxiety from this condition. My mental health has been affected from the years of gaslighting from family and doctors, and I feel like a burden to others at times. I have finally dealt with this and my depression in a healthy way, but the anxiety remains. I often have thoughts of, will it happen today? If so, how long? Will this ruin the occasion, or will I have to sit through it in pain? It's a lot to deal with mentally, but it has gotten a little more manageable over time. I have minimal contact with my family to this day. The years of neglect and ridicule have pushed me away. They did not believe me half of my life, and it's hard to open back up to the people that caused me to shut myself away for so long. My mother did apologize to me after the surgery in 2008, as she couldn't deny it any longer, but the damage was done at that point. I still consider myself to be lucky to have the friends and family I have made on my own over the years. Their love and support has helped me more than I can say. Endometriosis is a condition where the lining of the uterus grows in places that it shouldn't, like the bladder, fallopian tubes, and even the intestines. There's another form called adenomyosis, where endometrial tissue is growing inside of the uterine. I've been diagnosed with both and have endometriosis growing on my bladder as well. This causes intense pain, frequent urination for me. My menstrual cycles can be unbearable, from the intense cramping to the lower back pain I experience.